The silent monuments of Vren had spent 18 cycles studying dead civilizations, but nothing in his career had prepared him for what lay beneath the crimson sands of Archeon 7. The Severian archaeologist adjusted his environmental suit as the excavation drones cleared away the last layer of compacted dust. His elongated fingers trembled with anticipation as the ancient structure finally revealed itself to his team. The building rose from the ground like a sleeping giant, awakening from an impossibly long dream. Its surface was smooth, unmarked by the erosion that should have worn it down over thousands of years. The metal gleamed under the harsh light of Archeon 7's twin suns, reflecting colors that shifted between silver and gold depending on the angle of observation. Vren's secondary eyes focused on the mathematical precision of the structure's angles, while his primary eyes scanned for any identifying marks or symbols. Behind him, his research partner Lissa Thorne floated closer on her gravity platform. The Aurolian scientist was a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline vessel, her consciousness manifesting as swirling patterns of blue and violet light. Her species had evolved beyond physical form millennia ago, making them ideal for work in hazardous environments. She pulsed with excitement as her sensors swept across the newly exposed monument. "This is extraordinary, Vren." Lissa's thoughts resonated directly in his mind through their neural link. "The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. This structure is generating its own power field after what appears to be at least 40,000 years of burial. That should not be possible with any known technology." Vren approached the entrance, a perfect archway that stood 3 times his height. The Severians were tall by galactic standards. Their slender bodies evolved for low-gravity environments, yet this doorway made him feel small and insignificant. He ran his scanning device across the threshold, watching as streams of data filled his display screen. The readings contradicted everything he thought he knew about material science and temporal decay. Commander Boric stood guard at the perimeter, his massive frame a stark contrast to the delicate archaeological equipment surrounding him. The Thoraxian warrior belonged to a species bred for combat, with 4 powerful arms and armored plating that could withstand most conventional weapons. His role was to protect the research team from the dangerous wildlife that inhabited Archeon 7's wilderness, but his keen tactical mind had proven invaluable in planning their excavations. "We should proceed carefully," Commander Boric rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "My ancestors have stories about places like this, tombs of the ones who came before. They say such places are guarded by more than just locked doors." Vren appreciated the warrior's caution, but his scientific curiosity burned too brightly to be dampened by superstition. He had devoted his life to understanding the lost civilizations that once populated the galaxy, and this discovery promised answers to questions that had puzzled scholars for generations. The Galactic Council had funded this expedition based on orbital surveys that detected anomalous energy readings, but nobody had expected to find something this magnificent. The entrance mechanism activated as Vren approached, responding to his presence with a soft hum that seemed to resonate in his bones. The massive doors, each weighing several tons according to his scanners, slid open with effortless grace. No rust, no grinding of ancient gears, just smooth and perfect motion as if the structure had been built yesterday, rather than in the distant past. Interior lighting flickered to life as they entered, illuminating a vast chamber that stretched far beyond what should have been possible, given the structure's external dimensions. The walls were lined with panels covered in script that resembled no known language in the Galactic database. Vren's translation algorithms immediately began working to decipher the symbols, but progress was frustratingly slow. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal supporting a crystalline device that pulsed with internal light. Lissa drifted toward it, her energy form casting dancing shadows across the ancient walls. She extended a tendril of consciousness to interface with the device, and suddenly the entire room came alive with holographic projections. Images filled the air around them, showing star systems and trade routes that spanned the galaxy. Vren recognized some of the stellar formations, but others were completely unfamiliar. The projections showed cities of impossible scale, ships that moved through space without visible propulsion systems, and beings that looked almost familiar, yet distinctly different from any current galactic species. "These are historical records," Lissa transmitted, her thoughts tinged with awe. "This device is a repository of knowledge from a civilization that existed long before the current galactic powers rose to prominence. But Vren, look at the physiological data on these beings. Vren studied the holographic figures more closely. They were bipedal, standing roughly 2 meters tall with bilateral symmetry. They had 2 arms, 2 legs, and a single head positioned atop their torso. Their hands had 5 digits each, and their eyes were positioned forward on their faces rather than to the sides. Everything about their anatomy suggested they were predators, hunters who had evolved to track and capture prey. "What species is this?" Commander Borix asked, moving closer despite his earlier caution. "I have studied the military histories of every known civilization, and I have never encountered beings that match this configuration." The hologram shifted, showing one of the beings standing next to representatives of various galactic species. For scale comparison, the unknown creatures were smaller than Thoraxians, taller than Severians, and more physically robust than most spacefaring races. But it was their eyes that captured Vren's attention, those forward-facing predator eyes that suggested intelligence and determination in equal measure. Lissa interfaced deeper with the database, her consciousness merging with the ancient AI that maintained the records. When she withdrew, her energy form flickered with what Vren had learned to recognize as profound disturbance. "I have accessed the identification files. These beings called themselves humans, and according to these records, they were once the dominant force in this entire sector of the galaxy." Dominant? Vren's skepticism was immediate. There is no record of any species called humans in any galactic archive. The Council maintains comprehensive historical databases going back 50,000 years. How could an entire civilization simply vanish without leaving any trace in our collective memory? The holographic display changed again, this time showing what appeared to be a massive conflict. Fleets of ships engaged in battle across multiple star systems. Planets burned. Space stations exploded in silent fury. And everywhere the humans fought with a ferocity that made Commander Borix's warrior instincts flare with recognition. "They did not vanish," Lissa explained, her thoughts heavy with newfound understanding. "They were erased, not destroyed, but deliberately removed from galactic history." Watch the projection showed a gathering of various species, a council of the ancient civilizations that predated the current galactic order. They debated and argued, their body language suggesting fear and desperation. Finally, they reached a consensus. The humans were too dangerous, too aggressive, too unpredictable to be allowed to continue existing alongside other species, but the humans were not exterminated. Instead, the ancient coalition offered them a choice: leave the galaxy voluntarily and never return, or face total annihilation. The humans, displaying the strategic thinking that had made them formidable, chose exile. They gathered their people, their technology, and their knowledge and departed for the vast emptiness between galaxies. Before they left, however, the humans built monuments like this one. They scattered repositories of their history and achievements throughout the sectors they once controlled. Each structure was designed to last for hundreds of thousands of years, waiting for the day when some curious species would uncover the truth about the forgotten race that once ruled the stars. Vren felt his 3 hearts beating in an uneven rhythm as the implications became clear. "We have stumbled upon proof of a conspiracy that spans tens of thousands of years. The current galactic powers built their civilizations on the ruins of human territory, and they either never knew or chose to forget what came before." Commander Borix moved to another panel, his tactical training helping him identify what appeared to be schematics for weapons and defensive systems. These humans were sophisticated warriors. Their technology in some areas surpasses what we possess today. If they were forced into exile with these capabilities, where are they now? What have they been doing in the void between galaxies for all these millennia? The holographic display shifted one final time, showing a countdown timer. The numbers were incomprehensible at first, but Vren's translation algorithms finally cracked the code. His blood ran cold as he read the display. "This is a warning beacon. It has been counting down since the humans departed, measuring the time until their promised return." "How long until it reaches 0? Commander Borix asked, though his tone suggested he already suspected the answer. Lissa's energy form pulsed with urgency. "According to this timer, the countdown will complete in approximately 300 galactic cycles. That is barely enough time for the Council to prepare, assuming they even believe our findings." Vren began documenting everything with frantic efficiency. They needed proof. irrefutable evidence that would force the Galactic Council to take this threat seriously. Because if the humans had grown stronger during their exile, if they had spent 40,000 years preparing for their return, then the galaxy faced a crisis unlike any in recorded history. As they worked, Vren noticed something else. The walls of the chamber were covered not just with text but with images. Scenes of human life, their art, their culture, their achievements. They showed a species capable of great creativity and compassion, alongside their capacity for violence. They formed bonds of loyalty that transcended biological relationships. They adapted to environments that would kill most other species. They solved problems through innovation rather than brute force. These were not monsters, Vren realized. These were people, complex and multifaceted, who had been judged solely on their potential for danger rather than their proven actions. The ancient coalition had feared what humans might become rather than accepting what they were. The archaeological team spent 3 full cycles documenting everything they found in the monument. They discovered technical specifications for faster-than-light drives that operated on principles the current galaxy had never imagined. They found medical knowledge that could revolutionize healthcare across dozens of species. They uncovered philosophical texts that challenged fundamental assumptions about consciousness and existence. But they also found warnings. Messages left by the humans themselves, cautioning whoever discovered these monuments to learn from the mistakes of the past. Do not fear difference, one message read when translated. Do not mistake strength for evil. Do not choose exile over understanding. We leave this knowledge freely, hoping that future generations will be wiser than those who forced us to depart. On the final day of their initial survey, Vren made one last discovery. Hidden behind a panel that only revealed itself after completing specific tasks throughout the facility was a communication device. Its purpose was unmistakable. This was a transmitter designed to send a signal across intergalactic distances, a way to contact the humans in their exile, and inform them that their monuments had been discovered. Commander Borix examined the device with professional interest. If we activate this, we would be announcing our presence to a civilization that may harbor resentment for the actions of our ancestors. That could be interpreted as an act of war, or it could be seen as an act of reconciliation, Lisa countered. These humans left their knowledge freely available. They could have built weapons into these monuments, traps to punish whoever disturbed them. Instead, they left gifts and warnings. That suggests a species capable of forgiveness and growth. Vren stared at the communication device, torn between scientific duty and political reality. The Galactic Council needed to know about this discovery, but how would they react? Would they see the humans as a threat to be prepared against or as a lost civilization worthy of reunion? And what right did he have to make such a momentous decision on behalf of the entire galaxy? The choice was taken from him when secondary alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Lisa's sensors detected multiple energy signatures approaching their position from orbit. Someone else had noticed their presence on Archeon 7, and they were not coming to offer assistance. "We need to leave immediately," Commander Borix ordered, his combat instincts taking control. "Gather what data you can and prepare for emergency evacuation." But as they rushed to collect their equipment, Vren noticed that the communication device had activated on its own. The holographic display showed a message transmitting into deep space, carrying with it every piece of information they had documented about the monument and its contents. The humans had built safeguards into their repositories, automated systems that would inform them whenever their secrets were uncovered. "The message has been sent," Lisa confirmed, her energy form flickering with alarm. "The humans now know that their monuments have been discovered. They know that the current galaxy has learned the truth about their exile." As the research team fled the chamber with hostile forces descending from above, Vren understood that they had done more than simply make an archaeological discovery. They had triggered a countdown of their own, one that would culminate in the return of humanity to a galaxy that had spent 40,000 years forgetting they ever existed. The silent monuments had spoken at last, and their message was spreading across the stars faster than any ship could travel. The forgotten race would remain forgotten no longer. The Awakening Protocol. Message from Archeon 7 reached the Galactic Council chambers within 2 cycles, carried by faster-than-light courier drones that Vren Calax had managed to launch before his team's narrow escape. High Chancellor Draven Culm stood before the assembled representatives of 47 member species, his 6 eyes scanning the room as murmurs of disbelief and concern rippled through the chamber. The Xanthari politician had held his position for 12 years, navigating countless diplomatic crises. But nothing in his experience compared to the revelation now spreading across every data screen in the hall. The holographic projection displayed the findings from Archeon 7 in meticulous detail. Ancient structures, technological specifications, and most disturbing of all, the automated message that had been transmitted into the intergalactic void. The council chamber, normally a place of measured debate and careful deliberation, erupted into chaos as species representatives demanded explanations, contingency plans, and in some cases immediate military mobilization. Order. Chancellor Colm's voice boomed through the amplification system, his natural authority cutting through the disorder. We will address this matter systematically. First, we must verify the authenticity of these findings. I call upon our chief historical advisor to provide context. Matriarch Selenra glided forward, her serpentine body moving with practiced grace across the polished floor. The Ophidian scholar was among the oldest beings in the galaxy, her species blessed with lifespans that stretched across centuries. Her scales had dulled from vibrant green to pale silver over her 400 years of life, but her mind remained sharp as ever. She had devoted her existence to studying galactic history, and the revelations from Archeon 7 had shaken her to her core. Honored council members, Selenra began, her forked tongue tasting the air as she gathered her thoughts. I have spent the past 2 cycles reviewing our deepest archives, cross-referencing records that have not been accessed in millennia. What I have discovered troubles me greatly. There are gaps in our historical records, periods spanning thousands of years where data simply does not exist. We attributed these gaps to data corruption or loss during the Great Migration period, but now I suspect something far more deliberate. She activated her own holographic display, showing timelines and data streams. Notice how our oldest reliable records begin approximately 38,000 years ago. Everything before that is fragmented, contradictory, or missing entirely. It is as if someone carefully erased specific information while leaving the infrastructure of our databases intact. A representative from the Cronus Collective, a hive-minded species that communicated through pheromones and neural links, projected its concerns directly into the translation matrix. If this erasure was deliberate, who possessed the capability and authority to alter records across multiple civilizations? And more critically, are the humans truly returning, or is this ancient message merely a historical artifact? Before Selenra could respond, the chamber's emergency communication system activated. Admiral Thex Vargan's image appeared on every screen, his battle-scarred features grim with urgency. The Karathi admiral commanded the Council's defense fleet, and his presence interrupting a session could only mean one thing. Chancellor, we have a situation developing on the galactic rim. Our monitoring stations are detecting massive energy distortions in the void between galaxies. Something large is approaching our space, and its trajectory suggests deliberate navigation rather than natural cosmic phenomena. The chamber fell silent. Every representative understood the implications. Show us, the Chancellor commanded. The holographic display shifted to show sensor readings from the outer monitoring network. Admiral Vargan was right. The distortions were enormous, suggesting objects of tremendous size moving through the fabric of space itself. As the Council watched, the distortions began resolving into distinct shapes. Ships, dozens of them, each one larger than anything in the current galactic fleet. Those vessels are using a propulsion system our sensors barely register, Admiral Vargan explained, his forearms gesturing at various data points. They are not bending space like our drives do. They are moving through it in a way that suggests they exist partially outside normal dimensional parameters. Whatever civilization built those ships, their technology is centuries beyond our current capabilities. How long until they reach inhabited space? Chancellor Culm asked, though his expression suggested he dreaded the answer. At their current velocity, approximately 60 cycles. But Chancellor, that is not the most concerning development. The Admiral's image was replaced by another set of readings. We have detected response signals from 17 different systems across the galaxy. Ancient installations similar to the one discovered on Archeon 7 are activating simultaneously. They are broadcasting on frequencies we have never monitored because we did not know they existed. Matriarch Selenra's scales rippled with agitation. They left markers throughout their former territory, beacons to guide them home when they returned. We have been building our civilizations on top of their infrastructure for 40,000 years, never realizing we were living in their abandoned cities. The implications were staggering. Every major civilization in the galaxy had established their primary worlds in regions of space that offered optimal conditions for life and commerce. Now it seemed those regions had been optimal, because humans had already developed them, terraforming worlds and establishing trade routes long before current species had achieved spaceflight. A young representative from the Etherian Confederacy, a species of floating jellyfish-like beings who processed thoughts through electrical impulses, raised a tentative question. Perhaps they come in peace? The records show they left voluntarily rather than fighting. Maybe they seek reconciliation rather than conquest. Commander Borix, who had been granted special permission to attend the council session as a witness, stepped forward. His massive frame and battle-worn armor made him an intimidating presence in the diplomatic chamber. I have studied warfare across countless civilizations, and I can tell you this. No species spends 40,000 years in exile preparing for peaceful negotiations. Everything we found on Archeon 7 suggests they maintained their technological advancement and military capability. They are returning because they believe they can. Not because they hope we will welcome them, but what choice do we have? Another representative interjected. If their technology is truly superior to ours, military resistance would be futile. Perhaps negotiation is our only option. Chancellor Kulm raised his primary hands for silence. We will pursue multiple strategies simultaneously. Admiral Vargon, mobilize the fleet but maintain defensive positions. We will not fire first, but we must be prepared. Matriarch Selenra, continue your historical research. We need to understand what kind of species we are dealing with. And someone find Dr. Calax. His team has the most direct experience with human artifacts. We need his insights. As the council dissolved into working groups and emergency committees, a small exploration ship was making a discovery that would change everything. Captain Yenna Thrace commanded the science vessel Radiant Discovery, a modest craft tasked with surveying uninhabited systems for potential colonization. Her crew consisted of only 8 individuals, but they represented 5 different species working in harmony, exactly the kind of cooperation the Galactic Council championed. The Severian pilot, Nexar, had been following up on anomalous readings from a system designated only by coordinates, a cluster of rocky planets orbiting a dying star. One of those planets had once possessed an atmosphere and liquid water, but stellar evolution had burned away its life-giving properties millions of years ago. Or so they had thought. Captain, you need to see this, Nexar called from the navigation station. The planet is not dead. There is a massive structure beneath the surface, and it is generating its own contained environment. Yenna moved to examine the scans, her Felinar features expressing curiosity through the twitching of her pointed ears and the movement of her tail. Her species had evolved from ambush predators, giving her lightning-fast reflexes and exceptional spatial awareness. Take us into orbit. Standard survey protocols. As the Radiant Discovery entered orbit around the planet, their sensors revealed something impossible. Beneath hundreds of meters of lifeless rock and dust lay a facility of staggering scale. It was perfectly preserved, protected by energy shields that had maintained functionality for tens of thousands of years. And at its heart was something that made Yenna's blood run cold. Those are cryogenic storage units, reported Dr. Sinix, the ship's medical officer. The insectoid physician manipulated the sensor data with precise movements of her 6 limbs. And they are occupied. Captain, there are life signs down there. Thousands of them, all in suspended animation. The implications hit Yenna like a physical blow. The humans had not taken their entire population into exile. They had left behind volunteers, individuals who chose to remain in suspended animation until the day their people returned. These were not just monuments or historical records. These were living witnesses to the ancient past, waiting to be awakened. We need to report this immediately, Nexar urged, his elongated fingers hovering over the communication controls. But before he could transmit, another signal cut through their systems. It was coming from the facility below, a message broadcast in multiple frequencies and languages. The translation matrix struggled briefly before resolving the words into understandable content. Greetings to whoever has discovered this facility. If you are receiving this message, It means our detection systems have identified a spacefaring civilization in proximity to our position. We are humans, placed in voluntary stasis 40,000 years ago to serve as ambassadors when our people return from exile. We do not know what kind of galaxy awaits us when we wake, but we carry with us the hope that the fear and misunderstanding that drove us away has been replaced with wisdom and acceptance. The message continued, providing protocols for safely awakening the preserved humans and instructions for establishing first contact. Yenna listened in growing amazement. These people had volunteered to skip across millennia, abandoning everyone and everything they knew, on the faith that their sacrifice would matter. "Captain, what do we do?" Nexar asked, his voice uncertain. Yenna considered carefully. By council law, they should report the discovery and await instructions. But by the time bureaucratic processes ran their course, the returning human fleet would have arrived. This might be their only chance to establish contact on their own terms, to meet humanity not as ancient threats returning to reclaim the galaxy, but as individuals who had trusted in a better future. "Prepare a landing party," Yenna ordered. "We are going to wake them up." The descent to the planet's surface was tense. Their shuttle carved through the thin remnants of atmosphere, guided by navigation beacons that activated as they approached. The facility welcomed them with automated systems that had maintained readiness for 40 millennia, a testament to human engineering and determination. Inside, the cryogenic chambers stretched in orderly rows, each one containing a preserved human. The facility's AI, awakened by their presence, guided them through the revival process. The first chamber they selected contained a woman whose nameplate identified her as Dr. Sarah Chen, xenobiologist and diplomatic specialist. As the revival sequence initiated, frost crystallized and melted away from the chamber's surface. Sarah's eyes opened slowly, her body adjusting to consciousness after an unimaginable sleep. She sat up gradually, her movements careful as suspended muscles relearned their function. When her eyes finally focused on Yenna and her crew, she smiled. "Hello," Sarah said, her voice hoarse but warm. "I guess it worked." "How long has it been?" "Approximately 40,000 years, Yenna replied gently. "Your people are returning from exile. We wanted to meet you first to understand who humans truly are before fear and old prejudices could cloud judgment." Sarah's expression cycled through surprise, sadness, and finally determination. She looked at each member of the landing party, taking in their diverse forms and species. "Then we have much to discuss, because if my people are returning, it means they believe the galaxy needs them. The question is whether you will accept the help they offer or repeat the mistakes of the past." Over the following cycles, more humans were awakened. Engineers, scientists, artists, and yes, soldiers. Each one had volunteered for stasis knowing they would never see their original families again. They had done so because they believed in a future where species could coexist despite differences, where strength was not automatically equated with threat. As Yenna's reports reached the council, opinion began to shift. These were not conquerors returning to claim old territory. These were refugees who had maintained hope across impossible spans of time. The ancient civilizations had feared human adaptability and resilience, but those same qualities might be exactly what the galaxy needed. When the human fleet finally reached the galactic rim, they did not arrive with weapons charged and shields raised. They sent ahead a single small ship carrying Sarah Chen and other awakened ambassadors. They requested permission to return, not as masters reclaiming their domain, but as citizens hoping to rejoin the galactic community they had been forced to leave. In the council chambers, Chancellor Kulm faced the most important decision of his career. Before him floated a holographic image of the human ambassador ship, small and vulnerable against the backdrop of stars. Behind it, barely visible at extreme sensor range, waited the massive human fleet. They had the power to take what they wanted by force, yet they chose to ask. The vote was not unanimous. Fear and suspicion ran deep, and some species argued for maintaining the exile regardless of human intentions. But in the end, wisdom prevailed over fear. The council voted to grant humanity's request for repatriation, with conditions and safeguards, but fundamentally accepting that the galaxy was stronger with humans as part of it, rather than enemies outside it. As Sarah Chen entered the council chamber for the first time, walking on legs that had not moved for 40,000 years. She carried with her the hopes of two civilizations, the humans who had waited so long to come home, and the galaxy that was finally ready to welcome them back. The forgotten race had been remembered, and in that remembering, both humanity and the galaxy found something they had lost. Not dominance or submission, but partnership built on mutual respect and the hard-won understanding that diversity of thought, form, and capability made civilizations stronger rather than weaker. The monuments had served their purpose, preserving truth until the galaxy was ready to hear it. And now, as human ships began the long journey home to worlds their ancestors had left behind, a new chapter in galactic history began. One written not in fear and exile, but in reconciliation and hope.